Hi everyone, I'm Alec Nakashima of Akashi Kama. We're a clothing brand that is inspired by the Japanese-American experience. Join me on the next episode of Living the Nisei Dream, where we explore the links between the Japanese-American veterans' experience and our clothing.
Living the Nisei Dream, featuring Alec Nakashima, clothing designer and founder of Akashi Kama.
Being multicultural has been a blessing in my life, but also there have been challenges. Figuring out who I am and where I belong is a constant thing. I would like to invite you to a special video called I Feel With My Heart.
It's about Fernando Sosa Masuda, a half Japanese American, half Mexican American soldier of World War II, and his finding acceptance in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. As a half Japanese, half Mexican person myself, I can definitely relate to Fernando's story.
I can't really explain to you how happy when I found about myself, who I was, and then these guys around me came around. I wouldn't change that life for anything.
This story means so much to Fernando. It was time to see if we could reunite these young boys of World War II.
Watch, like, and share on Go for Broke National Education Center's YouTube channel.
Yo, Cosby Jones, Dusty Crates crew, Raw Tune family, what up? Living the Nisei Dream, showcasing the sacrifice and the courage of our forefathers, the Nisei veterans, so guys like me could chase after our dreams.
The 442 battle through Italy, France, and Germany.
Jizoku, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Hope to see you out there. Living the Nisei Dream. Peace.
We stand in strong opposition to the anti-Asian hate which is spreading across our nation. We are painfully aware that anti-Asian hate is not new. What also is not new are the stories of how Asian Americans have proven time after time that being an American is not a matter of the color of one's skin, but rather the content of one's heart.
Aloha, my name is Stephanie Nagami, and on behalf of the Pacific Bridge Companies and our Ohana, we are honored to once again sponsor today's Monument Anniversary pre-show, which features veteran photos submitted by loved ones during Go for Broke's Honor a Veteran social media campaign. This moving photo display captures the Nisei soldiers' Go for Broke spirit of courage, patriotism, and sacrifice, as well as their fight for equality for all people. Mahalo nui loa for your continued support of the Go for Broke National Education Center, and we hope you enjoy today's program.
Greetings from Honolulu, Hawaii. My name is Shinye Gima, and I served in the Military Intelligence Service.
My name is Tokyo Shihashi. I was a member of A Company of the 100th Battalion.
I'm Ralph Altoro. I was of the MIS during World War II.
My name is Don Miata, Able Company, 100th Battalion.
My name is Isamu Kaneshiro, and I served in the Military Intelligence Service in Japan.
My name is Steve Santo. I'm the son of Shukichi Santo, F Company, 100th Battalion, who served and was killed in action during the Italian campaign.
Thank you for supporting me and my fellow veterans.
My name is Beverly Iba. My husband's name is Shigiba, and he was part of MIS. Welcome to the Monument Anniversary.
It's great to hear from our heroes. Hello, everybody. I'm David Ono, ABC 7 News anchor, and a member of Go for Broke National Education Center's Board of Directors. Thank you, Shinye, Tok, Ralph, Don, Isamu, Steve, and Beverly, for that very special welcome to this year's Go for Broke Monument Anniversary virtual tribute. I'm honored to be here live with all of you to celebrate this hallmark event that marks the anniversary of our monument and also pays tribute to the courage, patriotism, and sacrifice of the Japanese American veterans of World War II. As we safely broadcast from our permanent exhibit, Defining Courage, today's program will present new voices and perspectives of the remarkable legacy of our veterans. While it is disappointing not to be able to gather in person again this year, we know that the power of the internet will allow us to instantly connect with diverse audiences from around the country and the globe. In fact, as we will share with you all later in the program, we have significantly expanded our outreach to tens of thousands of viewers, well beyond our pre-pandemic audiences. Now, through my work and my involvement with Go for Broke National Education Center, I have had the privilege of getting to know the Japanese American veterans whose lives were forever changed over 75 years ago. These young men and women were filled with dreams, aspirations, and hope, only to find themselves the target of racism, discrimination, and hate. Currently, our nation and the Asian American community are again facing similar racial discrimination and harassment. At GFBNEC, our resolve to ensure that all Americans know about the Nisei veteran story, it's stronger than ever. And we thank you all for joining us, and we thank the generous contributions from our sponsors and donors whose support enables us to continue to educate and inspire future generations. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce my co-host, Mitch Mackey, President and CEO of Go for Broke National Education Center. Great to see you, Mitch.
Thank you, David. And aloha, everyone. It is incredible to think that this is our 22nd Monument anniversary and that our organization was founded over 32 years ago by a remarkable group of Nisei veterans with extraordinary vision and purpose. David, as you so poignantly mentioned, the challenges facing our nation underscore the urgency of our work. During this past year, we have been challenged in many unexpected ways. A pandemic and a social crisis of race-based bigotry and violence. Through it all, our family of supporters propelled us to successfully pivot our programming from in-person to online. We are humbled and grateful. Thank you. To start this year's program, let's take a look at past Monument Anniversary programs and this year's wreath tributes by our Board of Directors and torchbearers, while Kendo Yokoyama, currently performing in the Hamilton National Tour, sings the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly sweetly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free, and the home of the
Wow, spectacular. Thank you, Kendall, for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Kendall's grandfather, Mike Yoshio Kubota, served in the MIS, and her great-uncle, Sadaichi Kubota, was in the 10442nd. It is wonderful to have the next generation so connected with us today. We also want to thank all of the veteran floral tribute donors who helped decorate our monument and evergreen cemetery in East Los Angeles over the past Memorial Day weekend. A special acknowledgement to San Gabriel Nursery and Southern California Flower Market for their generous donations of the potted plants and the wreaths. And you might have noticed this wonderful artwork right next to us. At this point, I want to take a moment to recognize the recent June 3rd release of the U.S. Postal Service Go for Broke stamp. This commemorative stamp recognizes the collective contributions of all Japanese American units formed during World War II. It is fitting that the first day of issuance was in Los Angeles, where 3 California Nisei women, Fusa Takahashi, Aiko King, and Chiz Ohira, started their campaign in 2005. Chiz was a dedicated volunteer at our organization, and her husband, Ted Ohira, was a founding Nisei veteran member of our board of directors. It is a proud moment of celebration for our Nisei veterans, and we wish to acknowledge the Postal Service for forever placing their story as an American story. These stamps are now available on USPS.com, Mitch.
You know, in planning today's program, we reached out to our partners across the nation. We want to know who is watching. So be sure to chat with us through our program on Facebook and YouTube channels. Please share your comments, send us your questions, and let us know from where you're watching. And we hope you'll join our GFB NEC family and make a donation on the website today at goforbroke.org. Together, we can make a difference. I now want to share with you an impending project that will open up new opportunities for our organization, as well as the Little Tokyo community. With our partner, Little Tokyo Service Center, we have been working on the First Street North expansion project, which will create a much more engaging environment around our monument. This includes a new building for our organization, affordable housing units, and an expanded Little Tokyo community footprint, a footprint which had been dramatically reduced in the decades after the war. This expansion project will be financed through tax credits and commercial investment, and it means that our monument will no longer be sitting alone in a parking lot. Let's hear more about this project.
The motion forward in City Council to literally triple the size of the lease and pass City Council unanimously.
Our main focus as architects is to listen. And there were a lot of voices on this project. So not only is the building's specific needs important, but the larger community context is important.
For me, to start the project, it was how the building will talk to the monument. And that was very important to me because I felt like the monument was kind of the heart of the project.
Voicing First Street North as one of the big parcels to anchor and ground our community for future generations. So LTCC has been involved in the community organizing, building community support for this so that we can think about what that development needs for our future.
It really comes at an important time where we're defending the historic core of Little Tokyo, but we're also addressing a need of affordable housing in this community.
We're accomplishing many different things through this venture, and I think it's going to be important for the development and continued mission of Go for Broke.
I was around since the beginning of the thought process and listening to my dad and the Colonel Kim, and to be able to do this in Little Tokyo, in Los Angeles, in California, where the internments happen, I don't know if they would be that surprised. I really think that they would think, you know what, the Sanse's got it, the Yonsei's got it, and the Gosei's, they got it. And that's why it's still moving forward. It took a lot for them to dig deep inside to create the story, and the story that they created, and the story that we told, and the vision that they had is coming true. The original vets, they had the idea of
a culmination of our veterans' dreams to memorialize their story as an American story. We are ever grateful to the men like Colonel Young-O Kim, Mas Takahashi, Ken Akune, James Ogawa, Buddy Mamiya, Victor Abe, Tetsu Asato, and many others for establishing the solemn place where visitors could come, learn, and reflect on an important part of our history. As the architects mentioned, the monument is at the heart of this project, and I can't wait to see how this project evolves.
You know, David, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and our leadership and staff are already reviewing ideas about how we can best utilize the new space. But you know, none of this would have been possible without the support from the Little Tokyo business and community leaders and the Los Angeles City Council. In particular, Council Member Kevin De Leon. We are fortunate to have the council member here with us today.
Hi, I'm Kevin De Leon, and it's my sincere pleasure to participate in this year's 22nd annual Go for Broke Monument Celebration. Now, on behalf of the residents of your council district number 14 and the entire city of Los Angeles, I'd like to express my profound gratitude for the more than 16,000 men and women for whom this monument is dedicated to. Now, their sacrifice for the protection of our nation reminds us that patriotism is not defined in the exercise of time-honored traditions or waving a flag. Our Japanese American heroes showed that patriotism is the willingness to defend the ideals of our nation, even when those ideals fall short of including all of its citizens. Now, this year, with the help of the Go for Broke National Education Center and the Little Tokyo Service Center, this city, our city, approved an expanded mixed-use affordable housing development. That development will further revitalize Little Tokyo. Now, equally important, the development will make the Go for Broke Monument a centerpiece in the community so that future generations can learn about and take pride in the sacrifice of these men and women. Now, as your representative, which I'm so honored to do, representing this community, I am humbled to work with each and every one of you, with our committed community leaders. Finally, I look forward to the future that lies ahead, a future that exists because of the very people embodied in the Go for Broke Monument. To all of my friends, each and every one of you, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Member De Leon, and to his staff, including Warren Furutani, Peter Brown, and Nate Hayward, who have been instrumental in moving the project to its current phase. You know, David, you've also been quite busy with your new series, Facism. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, thanks for asking, Mitch, and glad to. I'm very proud of the Facism series, which essentially addresses when we make those quick, often unfair judgments about people that we don't even know, ignoring the fact that there's so much more behind their face. So my intent is to expose often ignored history, erase stereotyping, and to move toward a better understanding of each other. We hope to be a powerful series that, like the work of GFBNEC is doing, is needed in order to change perceptions and attitudes. Thanks for asking me.
Well, but you're right, David. You know, making sure the stories are told remains critical to fulfilling our mission, which is why I'm looking forward to what we are working on next, our Letters from Home project.
That's right, and I'm super, super excited about this one. And please listen carefully, because this involves all of us. For the past couple of months, we have been collecting correspondence to and from Nisei soldiers during the war. With the letters, diaries, or journals, we are hoping to find the layers of complexities and emotions felt by the young Nisei soldiers in the face of war. The end product will be a full-length documentary highlighting their personal thoughts and experiences. So here's where you come in. Everyone, please check your attics, your closets, your boxes, your storage facilities. Let us know at takeaction@goforbroke.org if you find anything. The deadline is coming up on June 30th, but please look and let's make this a lasting collection.
As I mentioned earlier, we want to make this year's Monument Anniversary program memorable. This year, we added a new element to share very personal and unique connections to each of the units. So to begin, we have Stephen Kagawa, president of the Pacific Bridge Companies and a member of our board of directors, who will share his recollection of the 100th Infantry Battalion while growing up in Oahu, Hawaii. The 100th, or 1 Puka Puka, was the first of the segregated Japanese-American units to be formed with young Nisei from Hawaii. Their motto, "Remember Pearl Harbor," reflected their outrage over the attack on their home. This legendary combat unit heroically engaged in the most treacherous battles in Italy and France, where they earned their name, the Purple Heart Battalion. Let's hear Stephen's story.
I didn't know anything about the 100th growing up. I had those little G.I. Joe guys, and we'd all line them up, and I remember being in the backyard with my neighbor yelling, "Go for broke!" And I had no idea what that meant. It's embarrassing, but first of all, I gotta tell you that, I love to eat. So I heard, hey, all you can eat plate lunch and all you can drink beer. We're in the back of the room, we have all our food, we got all this beer. And all of a sudden, I hear this guy speaking in the front. I go, hey, wait a second. Shut up, you guys. I don't know what's going on over there, but I've never heard the story. And they were talking about the 100th. I didn't know about the camps growing up, and here my family was one of the very few that were incarcerated from Hawaii into Jerome. But I had no idea about the 442nd, the 100th before that. And of course, the 100th being that they're from Hawaii, they're in my backyard. They were the guys that actually got it started. And when I heard that, I was just mesmerized. And I guess the starting point for me in understanding what the 100th represented to me in my life and how important it was for me to make up for what I didn't know. Well, the story really humbles me. Each and every day, I am filled with mahalo, with gratitude, right? To give thanks for the people that came before me, the sacrifices that were made. And also at the same time, so proud, right? That it was the 100th who, in spite of some of our darkest decisions in our country's history, that they would stand up and make the decisions they made so that I could live the life that I live today.
You can read the rest. She didn't get names, huh? She needs to get names.
All right.
I didn't know.
It's wonderful to hear Stephen's story we could all learn from, and you could really sense the enormity of that moment when Stephen truly understood the legacy of the 100th. It is something that I certainly can relate to when we stop and fully absorb what these young men, 18, 19 years of age, endured and accomplished.
I couldn't agree more with what you just said, David, and how reassuring it is when we hear about others beyond the Japanese American community who have deep appreciation for our veterans. In fact, our next segment is about how in Italy and France, where the 442nd fought in the well-known major campaigns against the Nazis. French and Italian citizens reenact and emulate the Nisei soldiers. Stuart Harai, one of our Board of Governors, explains his personal interactions with the reenactors of the famed 442nd.
One of my first exposures to reenactors was I was walking along the streets during the parade in Gruyere, and this grandfather had his grandson holding his hand. And the grandfather stopped me and is telling the grandson that without the Nisei soldiers, instead of the grandson speaking French, he would be speaking German. It's really surprising to me also is seeing the white Caucasians in the 442nd uniform. They don't differentiate. Whoever's wearing the uniform, it's really irrelevant because it's what the 442 and 100 did to liberate those communities in Italy and France that really means the most. When they have a reenactment, they dress in period uniforms. They have a lot of equipment that's the real deal. They have the Willys Jeeps, they've got the half tracks, the deuce and a halves, tanks. I mean, they've got the whole deal. We have people show up. These people were probably children when the Nisei soldiers fought in their area, and they will come to us and they will shake our hands, they will hug us, and they will thank us for liberating their city. It's really humbling because it's not the tour group that liberated the city, it was our Nisei parents and relatives that did. But we get the message. They want to thank us because the veterans are passing away. So they want to keep this.
I love that part of the story. I also experienced reenactors over And our next segment is about the Military Intelligence Service, one of the lesser known units, but equally legendary for its critical work in combat, intelligence, and psychological warfare. These highly trained linguists served all over the Pacific, China, Burma, stateside, Europe, Latin America, North Africa, and played a pivotal role during occupied Japan. Referred by President Truman as the human secret weapon of the U.S. Armed Forces, their work shortened the war and saved countless lives. Joyce Yamane and her husband Stephen Wade, they share their journey of discovery of how her father, Kazuo Yamane, made an incredible contribution while serving with the MIS.
I knew very little about the Nisei soldiers until 1977, when my father was awarded the Legion of Merit Medal. My father was in the first class at Camp Savage, and he and his team were assigned immediately to the Pentagon and then was sent out to Packnear, now called Camp David, the presidential retreat. He was going through these boxes of captured documents, and their ancestors have contributed to the country of their birth. You respect the cultural attitudes that you are American.
How thrilling for Joyce and Stephen to unravel the significant discoveries of her father and the role of the MIS in proving their loyalty to our nation. Later this year, we will release a new video as part of our Heroes Among Us series that takes an in-depth look into the many yet-to-be-told stories about the MIS. Okay, David, let's take a look and see who's tuning in to see us today. I'm seeing on our monitor that we have people from, of course, the LA area, Torrance, Gardena, Mar Vista, but also we have folks from San Diego and Hawaii and Fort Collins, Colorado.
Absolutely. I've been giving a note. This one's really special. Michelle De Leonardo, you could tell by the name, Somebody is watching us from Cassino, Italy, which I find just fascinating. That also is, as most of us know, the site of the incredible battle, Monte Cassino, which the 100th fought so bravely. And to have, like we were saying, these supporters all the way to Italy watching right now, that's just a huge testament to what we're doing.
It really talks about how we're touching people around the globe right now. So to those in Italy and to those all around the nation watching us, thank you very much. I next have the honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Nikki Kodama, who is the granddaughter of one of our founding veteran board members, Buddy Yoshio Mamiya of the 100th 442nd. Nikki currently serves on our board of directors and will share her personal thoughts about our monument.
Today we are here to celebrate the 22nd anniversary of the Go for Broke Monument. While the physical foundation was laid back in 1998, with the monument being completed the following year in 1999, the foundational idea upon which the monument was built is much older. It was in 1989 that the 100th 442nd MIS World War II Memorial Foundation was established, and years before that when the idea first started growing roots. So while the monument celebrates its 22nd anniversary, its soul celebrates an anniversary well beyond 40 years. That makes the monument and I about the same age. In fact, we grew up together. We share lineage. My grandfather, Yoshio Buddy Mamiya, was a founding member of the Go for Broke National Education Center. Growing up, my understanding of the vets were that they were a fun group of guys that loved to eat and have a good time. I remember hanging out at clubhouse barbecues, attending reunions in Las Vegas and Hawaii, and sharing my box of cookies while riding in a World War II Army truck that my grandfather drove for years in the Armed Forces Day Parade in Torrance, California. My grandfather was proud of his service in the United States Army, surrounded himself with his veteran friends, and recognized early that their story was one to be celebrated. Along with one of his best friends, Colonel Young Oak Kim, and other veterans and community leaders, my grandfather was on a mission to share the story of the Japanese American soldiers of World War II. What started out as an exhibition grew into dreams of something more permanent. Those dreams started to take shape, resulting in plans for the Go for Broke Monument. Colonel Kim was a regular fixture at my grandparents' home. He would spend long days in the den at the back of the house with my grandfather, plotting and planning ideas for preserving the legacy of the Nisei soldiers. Around lunchtime, my grandmother would call on me. She'd tell me, "Go tell the old man, lunch is ready." I'd take off running down the hallway, stand at the entrance of the den and yell, "Old man, lunch is ready." That usually got a chuckle out of my grandfather and Colonel Kim. Now, we all know that food powers thoughts. Thoughts grow into plans, and plans make dreams a reality. So without this meal messenger, who knows if we'd be celebrating the monument today? Okay, well, maybe that's overstating my role just a bit. My grandfather was many things: a hero, a visionary, a leader. From an old mechanical typewriter, he wrote letters to stir up advocacy in the community. It talked about how important the Japanese-American World War II story was, how it was an American story that should be honored and preserved. The Go for Broke Monument has stood as a reminder for the last 22 years of the story of Japanese Americans whose identity as Americans was questioned. It is a reminder of the response that over 33,000 had when their loyalty to this country was in doubt. It is a reminder of heroism and sacrifice, not only of our veterans, but of the families that they left behind the day that they deployed. It is a reminder of a generation that paved the way for future Japanese and Asian Americans. Today, only a handful of our vets are still with us to share their stories and receive our gratitude. But the reality is that one day, in the not-so-distant future, that led to the realization of the Go for Broke monument. As both the monument and I have aged, my understanding of the veterans has grown. They are not just fun-loving guys that I ate barbecue and sang songs with. They are people that face adversities that I can't imagine. They are Japanese Americans that experienced racism on levels that I have never had to personally endure. They are heroes that didn't just talk about their patriotism when it was questioned, but responded with action. They are visionaries that dreamt of a better future for their grandchildren and worked hard to make that vision a reality. So as we honor the monument today, we honor their legacy. Being here is just a small way that I can say thanks. As the memories of my grandfather fade with time, I can always come back to the sturdy granite walls of the monument as a perpetual place of recognition and gratitude. Thank you to all who continue to support the monument and the Go for Broke National Education Center.
What a beautiful speech and such a loving tribute to her grandfather, and so touching to see Nikki's reflection on what he and his fellow Nisei soldiers achieved. Their selfless courage on the battlefield is both inspiring and empowering. Well, our next segment focuses on the 522nd Field Artillery Battalion. The reputation of the 522nd is that of being one of the most accomplished artillery units in the European theater, known for its speed and efficiency. The 522nd successfully completed every one of its 52 assignments and traveled 1,100 miles in pursuit of the retreating Nazis. In this segment, Mary Pat Higgins, President and CEO of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum, shares her thoughts about the 522nd, and this story serves as a bridge to other communities who know the pain of racism and hate. And here is Mary Pat's story.
The history of the Holocaust teaches us about our desire to scapegoat, to look for people to blame. It teaches us how an entire country can be convinced to turn against a very tiny population. And it teaches us how dangerous prejudice and hatred can be. When I learned about the 522nd Field Artillery Battalion helping liberate one of the subcamps of Dachau, and then also helping liberate Jews on a death march, the story is so inspiring because these young men had faced persecution at home, yet they chose to fight for their country, for themselves, and for others. At the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum, we use the term upstander. An upstander is someone who stands up for others and who sees something wrong and works to make it right. And it's our responsibility to do that.
Thank you, Mary Pat, for your inspiring remarks as both of our organizations continue to encourage others to be upstanders for equality and social justice. And thank you also for hosting our traveling exhibition, Courage and Compassion, in 2022, which tells the story of local heroes who stood up and offered assistance to Japanese Americans during and immediately after World War II. Partnerships like these are a key aspect of our work and give us the opportunity to bring the veteran story to different audiences. Another lesser-known unit is the 232nd Combat Engineer Company and the 1399th Engineer Construction Battalion. The 232nd's role was to keep the lines of communication and transportation open for the infantry. The only unit to be led by Japanese-American officers, the 232nd cleared machine gun nests and roads while facing enemy fire and the constant danger of booby traps and mines. The 1399th received very little public recognition and were often assumed to be just a labor battalion responsible for menial labor. However, the work they performed was integral to the security of the Hawaiian Islands and to the success of the war in the Pacific. Let's hear now from Carrie Morita, daughter of George Furua, who served in the 232nd.
I am a third-generation Japanese-American Sansei. I attended Cal State University, Long Beach. It was there that I learned about the camps that I never knew about. It was there that I learned about the 442nd, that my father was in this. My father was born also and raised in San Diego. Shortly after Pearl Harbor, he volunteered to join the U.S. Army. He was designated an enemy alien, even though he's born in California, could not join. But after a while, they drafted many of the young men out of Poston. The 232nd has always not been one of the main groups within 442 that you hear about. While at Camp Shelby, my dad was selected to be part of this unique group because they all had a background in engineering. They had to build the roads. When there was a dirt road, they would have to link arms and kick at the soil to make sure that there were no grenades that were buried. I believe they really became very close. His two good friends, Charlie Ijima in Honolulu, was part of the Honolulu Fire Department. Hiroshi Adesumi built the Maui Nisei Veterans Center. There aren't that many Nisei veterans around anymore. It's really their legacy that we must maintain. I want my children and my grandson to know about this history. This is a part of them.
I love to hear that story, and thank you, Carrie, for sharing what your father's service meant to you. So, let's get back to that fun stuff again, and that's talking about all the folks that are watching us today. Mitch, we have some good ones. We have Chris Otedorosa from Arlington, Virginia. Thank you, Chris. Jeremy Ballou, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we have another person from Italy. This time it's Massa, Italy. Frankie is watching us from Massa, Italy, and that is right near the Gothic line.
We also have Thomas Hara from Clarksville, Tennessee. So hi, Thomas, and Nancy from Newman, California. So again, you see we have people tuning in from not only all across the nation, but literally all across the world. So welcome to you all. It is so rewarding to see viewers from places around the country and around the world. So great to have everyone's engagement. We hope you will share this program and your families and your friends to see it, and they can see it on YouTube at their convenience. Now, we pay tribute to the courageous women who served in the Women's Army Corps, the Army Nurse Corps, and the Cadet Nurse Corps as they faced racial and gender discrimination. The Nisei women volunteered for the U.S. military because they also wanted to end the war as soon as possible. For many, their brothers were already serving in the Army and/or their families were incarcerated in camps. More important, the women wanted to prove their loyalty. I'm honored to introduce Mary Tamura, who proudly came into our gallery to film her story of service in the Cadet Nurse Corps.
I grew up in Terminal Island. It was a very unique community because my father was taken away on December 7th, and he was considered alien I couldn't go to college on the East Coast. Turner Island people were only given 48 hours to leave. Oh, that was the most terrible time that I have ever experienced in my life. We went to camp. I was a nurse's aide in Gila River. Well, one of the RNs that I got very friendly with said, there's a big opportunity for young girls like you to take up this cadet nursing training. It's free. There's a little obligation that you have to serve with the armed forces after you get your training. You know, my folks didn't have any money, and I got into St. Mary's School of Nursing at Rochester, Minnesota. Oh, it was rigorous. The sisters were very exacting. You know, you had to do everything the right way. We had to work so hard taking care of patients. We stuck it out. It was a good training. But the war ended, and I was in my second year of training. The government said all the nurses can't continue because they needed nurses.
I am extremely proud of the fact that I had such a patriotic mother. She took great pride and loyalty in everything she did as a nurse.
There were a lot of patients, they had lost all their life savings. I could help people just by being cheerful.
Oh my gosh, she's just adorable. What a remarkable person Mary is. And we are pleased to announce one of our Japanese American confinement sites grants, Called to Serve, will capture the detailed story of the Cadet Nurse Corps. Well, speaking of our work, let me introduce the newest member of our GFBNEC family, Sierra Kato, who will fill you in on what our organization has been doing this past year.
Hey everyone, I'm Sierra Kato, host of our new series, Living the Nisei Dream. Today, I have the privilege of talking about not only all of the exciting programs that we've been working on, but also the incredible impact we are having with our expanded online presence. Let me first say, however, that my involvement with Go for Broke National Education Center has truly been both personally and professionally rewarding. Since I began work on the new series last fall, my curiosity about my own cultural heritage and identity has been sparked, including learning more about my grandfather who was in the military intelligence service during the war. But before I get started, let's hear from the chair of our board of directors, George Henning, who will share his perspective on where we are as an organization.
When the pandemic hit, it created an uncertainty, an unknown that we certainly had no way of understanding what it meant, how long it was going to last, what the impact would be. And yet it seemed like each week and each month, we began to identify new ways to do things, and we're finding different ways to express our voice. I think the veterans have to be extremely honored and privileged that they're taking such an important part of the American story that we're presenting in many different ways to many different people. We're scratching the surface of what I think is the real opportunity in front of us.
I totally agree with George. It has been amazing to see the evolution of Go for Broke with its successful pivot to new online programming. What is equally striking is that while this is a 75-year-old story, so much of it still resonates with generations today, especially in light of what Asian Americans are facing now. It is so inspiring and humbling to know that over 33,000 Japanese American men and women stepped up to prove their loyalty.
These soldiers, true Americans.
So that my generation and future generations could live freely and pursue their dreams. As we saw with the individuals who shared their personal connections to each of the units, Go for Broke National Education Center has made a tremendous shift to connect to new voices and perspectives to the stories of the Nisei veterans. Beginning in January of this year, we launched 3 new series, Sharing Stories Around the Table, which brings a multi-generational, multicultural conversation centered on the Nisei story. Heroes Among Us, Stories of Courage, Patriotism, and Sacrifice, which presents an in-depth look at the stories within our Hanashi oral history collection. And the last series, which is, of course, one that I'm particularly proud of, is Living the Nisei Dream, which features next-gen Japanese Americans who are pursuing careers that our grandparents were unable to.
It's our turn. Like, we gotta raise up, we gotta represent, we gotta be like, yo, like, what's the point of learning history if we're not actually learning from it? Always going for broke, and yo, we living the dream.
Last August, we released the 4-part Black Soldiers of World War II series to recognize the contributions of the Black American servicemen and women.
Lieutenant John R. Fox was a member of the 92nd Infantry Division, a segregated unit of Black American troops.
On the anniversary date of the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, and in conjunction with last summer's Tadaima virtual pilgrimages, we shared the landmark story behind the formal apology by the U.S. government to the nearly 120,000 Japanese Americans affected by Executive Order 9066. All of these programs can still be viewed on our YouTube channel at your convenience, so please watch, like, and share. You will see that many interesting topics and themes were covered in the videos.
The breaking of the Gothic line and the roles that the 100th Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team played in this historic assault.
From racial injustice in our Black Soldiers of World War II, anti-Asian hate through the Kazuo Masuda story, and biracial identity and the special bonds formed during war in the Fernando Sosa Masuda story.
I can't really explain to you how happy when I found about myself, who I was, and then these guys around me came around. I wouldn't change that life for anything.
Each one of these programs immediately drew a widening audience from across the country and around the world. In fact, we have been seeing an impressive number of views. 10,000 for last year's Monument Anniversary virtual tribute, another 10,000 for our Evening of Aloha virtual gala, and thousands of views across our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram channels. Most recently, the incident at Bamber Bridge, one of the episodes from our Black Soldiers of World War II series, has been seen over 150,000 times. 5 different YouTube influencers posted the full episode and the reactions to the Black soldiers facing racism by the US Army while on English soil. It is remarkable how the Nisei veteran story has unfolded and how broadly the mission of Go for Broke National Education Center has developed. Another very exciting update is with our young torchbearers, who had been busy last year even during the pandemic with their twice-yearly cleanup of Evergreen Cemetery in East Los Angeles. On Memorial Day this year, they again gathered to clean the grave sites of the Japanese American soldiers buried at the historical place. They decorated each one with the veteran floral tribute potted plants donated by families and friends of veterans. Looking forward, the torchbearers are exploring new activities so they can continue to come together in person and virtually to share the legacy of the Nisei veterans. In Hawaii, we have been able to restart the introduction of our newly expanded high school curriculum to private and public schools throughout the islands. In partnership with the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, we also recently teamed up with the Nisei Veterans Legacy and the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center to deepen the awareness of our comprehensive new curriculum.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Nate Gyotoku, and I'm the President and Executive Director of the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii. In partnership with the Go for Broke National Education Center, we are launching a new expanded curriculum for high school students about the social-political effects of the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the resiliency of the Aloha spirit, taught through the history of the Japanese American soldiers in World War II. Following successful pilot testing this past school year, we are inviting teachers statewide to participate in the 2021-2022 school year. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the GFB-NEC to ensure that the legacy of the American World War II soldiers of Japanese ancestry, including those of my grandfathers, is not forgotten. Mahalo nui loa for your continued support.
Lastly, I want to discuss with you one of my favorite things to do, shopping. In addition to our fabulous one-of-a-kind Go for Broke National Education Center merchandise, our online store includes cool apparel from our collaborations with Japangelis and Akashi Kama, whose founder, Alec Nakashima, was profiled in the second episode of Living the Nisei Dream, released this past Memorial Day weekend.
You know, I have a great uncle who was in the 442nd. 2 years ago, kind of reached out and started a dialogue, and from there we've really kind of figured out ways that we can partner, ways that we can support this story, which is really important to me.
In keeping with building partnerships, we are proud to have one of our merchandise partners, the Pacific Mercantile Company, join us today. Let me now introduce Alyssa Noguchi.
As a fourth-generation Japanese American, it has been personally rewarding to learn about the Nisei World War II soldiers. Pacific Mercantile is pleased to partner with the Go for Broke National Education Center as we proudly sell their merchandise in our store. This is our way of making sure the legacy of our veterans is remembered by generations to come. Thank you for the Go for Broke National Education Center for all that you do for the Japanese American community. Our family at Pacific really appreciate you.
Before I forget, now through the end of June, we are offering 2 special bundle packages, so please visit www.goforbroke.com to check out this great offer.
I hope hearing all of this leaves you feeling well informed about how Go for Broke National Education Center continues its important work through engaging and thought-provoking programming. Remember to please show your support, watch, like, and share our videos, stay connected with us on social media, and become an eTorch subscriber. And now, back to you, Mitch.
Thank you, Sierra. I hope that you all enjoyed watching all of these videos today. Each one tells a story about a different side of Go for Broke National Education Center. As we hopefully begin to see the end of this terrible pandemic, there is a very bright tomorrow that lies ahead for us. A future whose roots you can see today. We are finally putting up a building to embrace and accentuate our monument. No longer will our monument exist alone in the middle of a parking lot. The Little Tokyo community is excited about it. Our veterans are excited about it. And the process is underway to create this new permanent home that will be rent-free. We are creating new types of virtual programming, stories about the courage and sacrifices of our veterans, heartwarming tales of these veterans, their families, and the legacy of their lives, and stories of young people pursuing activities which the traditional Nisei would think would only be dreams. And people are watching these videos in the tens of thousands. We are rolling out curriculum in Hawaii and partnering with 3 locally based organizations to make sure that the lessons are spread far and wide. And we are connecting with young people who are embracing the story of our Nisei veterans and taking on the responsibility of keeping their legacy alive. Yes, we are beginning to emerge from this pandemic, and we see a bright future ahead of us, a future with a permanent home, stories to tell, and an energized younger generation to continue to carry the torch. But folks, we can't get there by ourselves. We need your support. Just recently, I was speaking to one of our veterans. As usual, he was full of humility and self-effacing. He told me that when he attends gatherings and accepts awards, it's not for himself. He said, it's for all the guys that served. It's for the guys who didn't come home. He went on to say that there was a time when he wondered what would happen when all the veterans were no longer here. What would happen to the legacy? Who would tell the story? Who would remember? He then looked at me and said, Mitch, now I know. Go for Broke will still be there. You all will keep the legacy alive. You will tell the story. You will remember. If you cherish their legacy, if you want to preserve their story, please help us to ensure that America will remember. In one of the darkest chapters of our nation, at a time when our nation turned its back on this American community, these young men and women stood tall and demonstrated the wisdom of America's promise. The promise that in our nation, no one is to be judged by the color of their skin, the nation of their origin, or the God whom they choose to worship. By making a donation, you help us to continue to tell that story and to remember these faithful Americans. Thank you all for being with us here today.
Mitch, that was beautiful. So well said. And it's interactions and conversations like the one that you had with that veteran that are so impactful and meaningful. And they remind us of the vital work that we do and must continue to pursue. Our work is urgent and purposeful. We truly believe in that. And I too hope that you have enjoyed this second virtual Monument Anniversary program. And on behalf of the leadership and staff, thank you again to our dedicated sponsors and donors. We could not have made it through last year without your generous support. Online donations can be made right now and at any time on our website, goforbroke.org, by clicking the red button up at the top. Every gift allows us to continue expanding our educational programming and outreach to all our audiences. Lastly, don't forget that this program can be viewed again on our YouTube and Facebook channels. And by the way, we understand there might have been some streaming problems, but don't worry about that. That happens on live television, so to speak. So we have a very clean version that will be on our YouTube channel. Remind your friends, families to watch it, like it, share it. Vitally important there. And please become a member. Follow us on YouTube. Until the next time we come together to honor our Nisei veterans, stay safe, stay well, stay connected with us. And we leave you now with this moving rendition of America the Beautiful, performed again by the wonderful Kendall Yokoyama.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved.